I wasn't as disciplined as I needed to be in that 200 to 300 jump. And my mentor at the time said to me, "You talk too much and you're too slow."
Tim Young?
Nope.
Oh.
It was Tori Robeson.
Okay.
And
because he says that a lot.
You shut up. He's like, "You're too slow and you talk too much." Received it, right? I was in front of a lot of people when he said that to me. And I just remember being like, ouch. And then I was like, all right. Like, and I appreciated him for just being super direct. Right. And so I came back and I started asking myself, like, does this really need to be said? Like, so much of what we say in table talk and like is just banter that's not productive.
Dr. Lona Cook was able to go from 200 to 300 visits per week in 1 quarter after hearing one piece of feedback. Lona is a chiropractor out of Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, with one of the most unique practices that I have ever come across. We're talking 6 doctors, 2 locations, and a public school service program that serves 400 kids per week in the public school system. As far as she knows, and I know, there is nobody else in the country doing this. In this episode, Lona breaks down how a single email turned into that school program, which is now a second business, the real reason that most practices plateau and never break free, why she thinks we spend too much time chasing new patients as opposed to taking care of the ones that we already have, and how she structures her team and her business so that she can pull back to spend time with her kids without the business completely falling apart. If you've ever felt like you're the ceiling to your own practice, this episode's for you. Let's dive in. Lona Cook, welcome to the show. We are live on YouTube and LinkedIn, and there'll be an edited version of this as well, but welcome. How are we doing today?
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. Thanks, Corey.
Yeah, good. We got connected through the whole TRP, the remarkable practice, and fun fact, I'll actually be out there in Phoenix here
Nice.
in, what is that, 2 weeks from now, something like that?
But, yeah, not even. I think like we'll be leaving in a week.
I know, crazy. But so to kick things off, you see 400 kids a week in the public school system, which I don't even know.
But my team does. Yes.
Yeah, the team does. But like, is there any other practices that are even doing this? Are you the only one in the country doing this? Like one, I'm just curious as to like how that even happened, and also I'm curious too, like what does a typical Monday morning look like for you and your team to be able to handle such a task? So
yeah, I am not aware of anyone else doing it. Let's put it that way. Do you want me to tell you the story of how it started?
I would love to. Yeah, I want to know. I want to know the team meeting of like, well, first how it got started, and then also like, what does team meetings look like now that it's been however long you've been doing this now? But
okay. All right. Well, I started our main office back in 2010. So this is 16 years now in this location, and I still practice in this location. I'm in the office. I'm not in the schools anymore. I used to be in both, but I have a team now that's in the office and a team that's in the schools. And so where it really started, I was at a New Beginnings, which is a philosophy seminar. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, Corey. Do you know what New Beginnings? Okay. It's in New Jersey. I always joke that it's like your long lost Italian mobster chiropractic family, and it's lovely. And they've been having seminars there for many, many decades, right? And so I had a mentor say to me many years ago when I was trying to grow the original practice, that I needed to become like an orange. When you squeeze an orange juice comes out. When you squeeze a chiropractic should come out, not medical jargon. And he's like, you need to go get dipped with these deeply philosophical chiropractors. So I was like, okay, I'll do whatever I need to do. So I'm sitting in that room. This was probably one of my first few times going to New Beginnings, because it at that time happened 3 times a year. I think now it's usually twice a year. And there was a doctor speaking in the front on the stage, and his name is Dr. Eddie Diaz, and he had the whole room go through this like visualization. And in the visualization, he said, I want you to imagine what like our culture, what our population functions like when, instead of asking our children and parents upon entry of kindergarten for vaccine records, if the question was like, has your child been checked by a chiropractor, right? Like, what would the world operate if the average person knows what we know about like where health comes from, how to live more of an innate lifestyle and connected to this power within, and like how would that transform society, right? So he went through this kind of like visualization of this utopia. And I remember thinking like, that sounds nice. That's not going to happen, right? Like I was that person that was very cynical about it. And he had us open his eyes, and he then said like, who in the room can see it? And you're in the room with some of the like greats in chiropractic that were alive at that time. And of course, everybody's hand goes up because you don't want to be the person that's hand doesn't go up. But my hand was definitely like, I'm not sure. And he said, if you can't see it, you are part of the problem, right? And at the moment, like I was learning about where do thoughts exist. Are we just like downloading? Are we receiving? We're all influencing each other. And so I realized, oh shit, he is right. Like if we as a profession can't see like mass acceptance of the chiropractic message and everybody wanting more of what we're all doing with our own children, then like it's our limitation, it's our ceiling we've placed on this profession already. Like, that you hear us being like, oh, people don't get it, right? And so that just kind of like hit me between the eyes. And I really think the conversation about like, yeah, what if schools, what if that was a big change that happened in school? It just kind of sat it with me because my parents were educators. So came home, was in practice, things were busy enough. I obviously didn't necessarily need to start looking outside my four walls for this scenario of like, could I bring chiropractic into schools? But what happened is for a year or two, I just started to have this like agitation. And the agitation was like, you're not playing big enough, or there's something you're meant to do that influences more people. And it took me a little while to realize like, I think I think we should bring care into the schools. So, long story short, after sitting in a bunch of meetings with district people and sitting through things, a lot of things I didn't agree with too, just being someone in the room, we got the opportunity to bring care to the teachers. That's where it first started. So, bringing portable tables in every so often that the staff could sign up for, pay with their HSA, get adjusted. I tell chiropractors because I think chiropractors have a harder time understanding like how we do this than like a lot of other professions already enter into the school conversation. So it's like what you did in your office, you're just taking it to a different location, right? And that went well. And after the first year, one of the admin came to me and she said, "Why can't we do this with the students?" And I said, "I don't know, you tell me." And she's like, it's my job to actually find things that are good for the students and bring them in. So she's like, we bring in mental health, we bring in PT, OT, you name it. Sometimes we're even bringing in a dentist at certain schools. Why couldn't we try chiropractic? We would try almost anything with some of these kids that really struggle at school and see if it made a difference on their school day. So I thought, okay, this feels like a nudge, like this feels like I'm supposed to do something here. And when we began, I never really thought like that it would move that quick. Like I didn't think we would be serving the teachers and then a year later be ready to like, oh, she wants the kids, to be seen. So I called some of my mentors and said like, okay, this is what seemed like it's happening, and they helped me understand like how we were going to kind of pilot this first school that was going to start. And we sent home, we gave the teachers 50 different intake forms to send to whichever kids they wanted to send. That again, think about like if you were going to send forms home with a parent in your office, not so different. Um, Sent them home. 50 forms went home. 20 came back of parents signing up like, yeah, I'm interested. Thought that's pretty good. I didn't even talk to these parents. It just was like the stamp of approval from the school saying like, hey, I think your kid may benefit from this. Like, would you be interested in this program? We're going to start it on Mondays. And we started with 20 kids for our first pilot. And as you can imagine, here I am today saying we have 3 chiropractors that are full-time in the schools. It grew. And here we are today. So a lot more has happened since then, because that was now almost 10 years ago that we really began this like initiative. But it's one of those things that breaks down a lot of barriers of time, barriers of energy, barriers of access for a lot of the kids. We also work with some of we work with an insurance now in the school that we don't in the office because we're mostly private pay in the office. And so we've just tried to realize how can we serve outside the 4 walls of our office with this mission of bringing subluxation focused chiropractic to more people. So
What was that initial conversation like with the school to even make that possible? I'm curious if you could take us back to that like 2016 moment of like,
yeah.
hey, we want to do chiropractic for the kids here. Like what did they say?
Well, I didn't like push for the kids. That was them that started that. I just started first with the HR, no, excuse me, with the superintendent and then the HR. So superintendent, we knew each other. I knew she was more organically minded, let's put it that way. I didn't know if she knew anything about chiropractic, but I just said, your teacher, like it was divine timing in some level. Like there was a lot of benefits that had just gotten removed from uh, the state of Wisconsin educational system. And so there was a lot of unhappy people at that moment. And so the email, I think that opened the door. I just spoke directly. I said, I know that this is a tough time and that a lot of people are stressed. And I don't know if you've ever considered having some things that really support well-being on site for your staff, but I imagine things that you'd be interested in that would be easy enough to provide there may be a good benefit to offer. If you're interested in talking about how chiropractic could be brought to your staff, like I would love to have that conversation, right? And she then said, that's an interesting idea. I've never thought about it. Let's have you talk to HR. HR came to my office, and I remember this. The first thing she said was like, I had a bad experience with the chiropractor once. And I was like, oh, great. But we spoke really simply. It's like, I think especially now, fast forward another 10 years, people are having conversations about the nervous system and regulation and the brain and stress. And so we just talked about how we wear our stress and how the teachers had just gone through a lot of things that made them pretty stressed out. And that maybe something as simple as getting to lay on a chiropractic table during their workday at some point and get a great adjustment would actually elevate not only their well-being, but also how they then are engaged in the classroom and the environment in the school. So it didn't happen overnight. I sat through a bunch more meetings after that. They polled the population of teachers. There's 600 employees in this district, and from that poll, chiropractic was in the top 5 of about 20 things that they were interested in being brought on site. So that's actually how the door then opened up, is they said, okay, that sounds like there's an interest in this. Let's see,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Super
And here we are
cool.
now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and the reason I asked that question is because I'm curious for like the listener really is like if somebody wanted to replicate something like this, like how, I mean, is it just a matter of starting that conversation? The other thing too is I'd be curious as to like what's the business model there? Like how do you get paid? Is insurance? Is it cash? Like what's the economics of seeing 400 kids a week? Like what is
yeah. Yeah, I mean, at first it was more of a passion project, although there was an exchange, but because we also were working with Medicaid reimbursement, which is traditionally less than most of us are going to want to accept in office, that was something we had to figure out. And I know that not everyone would want to do that. However, just like we were just having this conversation, because we have put a lot of effort into the last year to year and a half into putting our systems and our processes and all the things that we've learned in the 10 years together for. I do believe there's a lot of opportunity if we're willing to go outside our offices into places, schools being a huge one of them. So we've created our own like certification process so that somebody could do this as well as we can use it internally as we're training more doctors. Um, but the model is not so different than the office. Like you're going to bill for there's no exchange currently in how we do it between the district and us. It is done through the parents, either private paying or private insurance or state insurance if they're, not eligible to have regular insurance, right? So, in our model right now, it's about 50-50, like 50% cash and then 50% that we're using some sort of other funding from. And then we also have a nonprofit to help fundraise for research and then eventually open up more access for more kids.
Hmm.
So, but if the traditional brick and mortar model typically was like one doc is then, going into like, let's just say higher volume chiropractic adjusting and then has a CA and then has 2 CAs, maybe even has 3 CAs to support their ability to do their patient load, right? It's kind of an opposite model. So we have like 2 or 3 docs for every 1 CA in the school, because the docs can, if they're in a larger school and the school has a lot of students getting care, we may have the CA come with them and actually get the kids out of class versus the doc otherwise can get the kids out of class, or if they're older kids, they come down themselves. And so we've just made it work. We've just had to figure out a different model so that it's not quite as overhead heavy as a traditional practice.
Would you
And
recommend?
you don't have the brick and mortar
Yeah.
piece. So like there's no square footage we're paying for.
Right. Yeah, overhead's lower without having to
Mm,
pay for rent and whatever. But
yeah.
does this feel like a business model you would recommend to other chiropractors, or is this
Yeah.
just continue?
I
Okay.
think I totally think that this is doable for whether it's corporate, like corporate settings, or school-based settings or nursing homes. I think going outside the four walls of your practice is a viable business setup. It's just you still need to be doing all the normal like attraction, conversion, retention, team building, money. Like you still have to figure it all out. It's just done in a different um, you don't have the same system set up in your office every day. It's you're going in and you're having to set that up in somebody else's space.
Hmm. I can
Mhm.
already hear a doctor thinking to themselves, "That sounds like a logistical nightmare."
It's a lot. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a lot to figure out. And I think that's what prevents people from like they think they've got to have it all figured out right from the jump. Like obviously we've grown into this to be able to serve that many students. We didn't start like, hey, we're going to start with three doctors and we're in 16 locations. Like no, it started in one location at this time in the morning on Mondays, and then I hightailed back to the office, right? Like it's one of those things where yes, I think this could be somebody's total model, and I think there are people out there doing mobile style chiropractic. However, I think more importantly, I think there's offices that either have associates that the associates could be busier. They could start some of these things where they go out and on Tuesday mornings they adjust in whatever, in a private school, in a public school, in whatever, and grow it. And just know that it has to grow like any other part of your business, right? If I never could have seen the vision for Amanda eventually being full time when I brought in my first associate for this, and she was half time in the office, half time in the schools, we wouldn't have grown into that, right? Like we have to have the vision for it to grow and then put the structure in place just like you would any other business,
Hmm.
right?
So
Process and procedures, all of it.
back to my original question. So it's been 10 years now.
Yeah.
What does a typical Monday morning look like for the team now?
Yeah. Monday, so we have two teams, right? So we have the brick and mortar office and we have the team that goes to the district. So like Monday morning here is like a normal high volume, busy practice. And I practice on Monday. So I'm just in it with like, we get in, we huddle, we do the normal team thing for the typical practice. Monday morning for my remote team, the on-site team, the two of them or three of them are going to the busiest public school that we've had going the longest, that has the most amount of kids. And they're there for like 2 hours and they do a huddle when they get to the school, right? And then from that school they go to the next school, right? So we usually are in two or three schools a day, depending on the day. Um, and so each one has a little mini like pre-shift, post-shift huddle, and then just time to travel, right? And then they have a team meeting. Their team meeting is on Tuesday as far as the offsite or the on-site locations, and then we have a team meeting for the other team on Monday too. So we have separate team meetings. We come together for team training because so much of what we wanted to duplicate, whether we were in office or out in the community, was like standard of care and like communication and education and all of that was still what it would be, and very close to what it would be in the office as far as like how we took people through processes. So we come together to train together. And obviously there's nuances to like, well, if I'm doing this in the high school versus if I'm doing this, at said elementary school, it's different. But then when we go to role play, we like split off. Right. Hmm.
Okay. Um, you're doing a lot. So
Yeah.
between the two teams, obviously it sounds like you're still practicing, you're coaching. I know you do some research. Uh,
Yeah.
how are you doing it all? And maybe you're not. I don't know.
No, I'm not. I have amazing team, and the team is what allows us to be this productive, right? So I have had the good fortune to attract great people and then see how we can collaborate and keep growing these crazy ideas that we have. And Amanda's a great example of that. So she's my co-pilot in the school-based model. And she was someone I met on a mission trip. And she said, "Oh, I'm going to come up and shadow." And we were like back and forth. And she had met me at a New Beginnings, that seminar at one point. She was still in school at Life. And then she came up to shadow thinking she was going to go back to Ohio and open a practice. And then she saw the school-based model And she's like, I think I'm supposed to move up here and do this with you. And I was like, that would be amazing, because my associate had just actually opened, we had two brick and mortars that were like satellite clinics for a while too. Those have sold now. So I'm not that crazy anymore to have all of that. But I think that for me, my gift is I love seeing what could be created. Like I'm definitely a like visionary personality of like what's possible here, like why not? And then how to simplify things to like put them in order and get them moving. And then attract the right people that can keep them moving and keep them growing and whatnot. So like Amanda was one of those people that when she came in, the school-based model like just kept expanding from there because she put all of her love and intention into it. And we just started creating more and more structure to it. And then we attracted the next chiropractor and the next schools, and then it could go from there. And that's where we're at right now, is like we believe this model, there's a lot of implications of if chiropractic could be in most larger school systems that are public, like how much that makes such a difference for these students that some of them wouldn't have access easily otherwise, as well as what does that do for our profession if in 10 or 15 years a lot of these kids have grown up with chiropractic is normal to them, and now they're adults and they know that that's a choice, like that maybe I want to use chiropractic more than I ever had considered before because it was normal to me while I was growing up.
I didn't even think about that, but that's actually a really good point.
Hmm.
Um, Getting to them when they're younger and showing them the benefits of it and having that continue out throughout their life. That's interesting. Um, so you've built practices, you've handed them to partners, you've built other practices and kept going. I'm curious as to what the framework is for knowing when to keep and hold on to something or when to actually like
Mm,
let it go or delegate it or sell it or give it to a partner or something of that nature.
yeah. I don't know if I have mastery of that, but something that has been really important in my like trajectory is, like I said early on, getting really solid footing on chiropractic philosophy. And that philosophy exposed me to energetics and understanding energetics, because in chiropractic, if we get really into like Didi Palmer and who he was and what he was into, like the man was a genius and really into some deep stuff, talking about like how man spiritual and man physical like operate through the body, right? And so as I got into energetics, and I had this amazing mentor, still do, I just don't see her as much as I used to. She was fascinating to me, and she really taught me so much of like we say in chiropractic words like above down inside out, right? The hover that made the body heals the body through above down inside out. And above down inside out, or ADIO, to me is how like the nervous system expresses, like our system downloads essentially and then expresses out an electromagnetic frequency. And everything that we experience is in harmony or relationship or dissonance to that which we are, right? Um, and in chiropractic we call that the major premise too. Like there's an order to all things at all times, even that which doesn't seem like there could possibly be order there. If you were standing in the eye of a hurricane, probably going to die potentially, right? If you get above it, look and behold, there is sacred geometry to like how the spiral unfolds, right? So there's order there, even though in our vantage point we might not see it. I say that because back to your question of like, how do you know to unload this? I really watch or make changes or attract a team or blah blah blah. Like I really watch the energy of myself first of all, and then the energetics of like what's happening, right? And I think that's an art form, to be able to pay attention, as well as obviously the things like the stats and the like all the data is important too, but so is trying to understand what's happening that created that data, and where is it energy rich, where is it not, where is my energy moving. Like I had an example in my practice that most recently sold, um, now a couple years ago. We were on target not to sell until this year, and I just knew that like I felt like even though the contract was already in place and it was partially being bought out, I just felt like I'm not in it anymore, like meaning like my mind isn't in it, I'm not really connected in a way to that practice anymore, because there was other things like the school model that we were like going all in on. And so I felt like I'm going to offer her a way to buy me out sooner, partly just to separate our energy at that point. It felt like the right thing to do. And she took me up on it. And I felt like then that brought me energy reserves again. So things like that I pay attention to is like, where am I focused? Where am I letting my focus go? Where's my team focus? I'm really trying to like pay attention to that. And then what opportunities show up, right? Like, and where, isn't it interesting when I'll give you an example from last year. We put on an event. I said to, we had like 100 chiropractors at this event in our area, and it was great. It was fun. And I had a friend of mine afterwards that was speaking at it come up to me. So like, that was amazing. What's next? Like, what's happening next? And I said, I don't know, but the team is so stable right now. That's what I said. He's like, Lona, like the second you say that, like something's going to happen. Right. And he just kind of gave me this like wink. And I was like, oh, don't say that to me. And I had made the decision already that I have a 5-year-old boy and a 10-year-old boy, that I was going to pull my schedule back a little bit more so that my kids could potentially travel a bunch more with me this year, and that I would try homeschooling my oldest, because that is meaningful. I'm in this time of life where like I'm never going to get my 5-year-old and my 10-year-old back at this age, right? So we just had this conversation. You just said this. I get on a phone call with someone that's looking at the layout of our bigger practice here, and he's like, I thought he was going to say we were really optimized and efficient based on our floor plan. He's like, you're using half your space. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, you're like not using this part of your space well at all. Like you guys could see so much more people if you just relayed this out, blah, blah, blah. And it just like, he was great about it. It was an amazing conversation. It was Davlin Designs that we had this great conversation. It really shook up my brain. Like that conversation, like just like the conversation about kids getting adjusted in schools and being asked about, like all those years back. This conversation was like, what? In my head. And so I just played with it for a little bit in my mind. Well, it was like I could count, like it felt like moments later that everything just shook up. It was like as soon as that thought hit of like we could see more people here in a different way, and this could be changed over here, and like good things started opening up. But then also like I got team members that are like getting off the train, and like I was like, oh, this is not what I really wanted. But somehow it's weird when you start to all of a sudden like have a vision that's different, how like things just start to move, right? And it's almost like that's the part that I think has allowed me to do as much as we've done. Is I'm like, don't get me wrong, sometimes I'm like overwhelmed by it, but also other times I'm like, let's just let what's going to come in, and like keep, a narrative of our story of like, this is fun, we should be having fun, like this doesn't have to be stressful, and then attract people that want to operate that way.
As somebody who is energy ignorant, I guess we could say,
Yeah.
what would you tell, like if you were trying to explain to a 5-year-old, because you describe it as like energy giving, energy pulling, like
Mm-hmm.
moving of energy. I
Yeah.
hear the words, but if you were
Mm-hmm.
explaining it to a 5-year-old, what would you tell them to help
Yeah.
them understand what you're talking about?
I think I would ask them like, when do you feel in your body the best? Right. And they might say, when I get snuggled, or, when I played soccer, or when I'm laughing, or I got to play Minecraft. Okay. That when you feel like that, and there's a lot of energy there, like that's what we want to create more of. Okay. We want to pay attention to things that seem to like ping that type of energy
It's almost like
versus,
playful.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think business should be playful. Doesn't mean it's fun all the time, but it's like, could you have fun in your drudgery? Right? Could I do this for the 7 millionth time and still be playful about it and be excited and engaging with it? Right? Like that, there is a choice to that. Right? Um, and I think that's the part that we do pretty well. Mm-hmm.
I like that. That makes sense to me, because that feels very much to chopping carrots. I eat a lot of carrots, but
Mm-hmm.
like there's no reason why I couldn't be present and mindful and appreciate the moment of chopping carrots, right? Like
Yeah.
we can bring that with us.
Yeah.
Not that like brings me energy. It's not quite the same as, a good hard
Right. But
workout,
like if,
but yeah.
okay, I'll use the example of like, there's certain things that get seared into your soul, right? Like good and bad, right? What we've labeled as good or bad, right? And those moments are you're super present in because they're like they're like so deeply in you, right? So one of them, I'll use an example of like meeting my child for the first time. Like, so anyone that's had a kid, like you're just like, you know, especially as a mom, you're like, I just went through that event and like, and then, oh my gosh, here's this amazing being, right? And I meet you. And that's like seared into your mind of like that love and whatever. So when you have recognition in your own nervous system of what some of these things feel like, it's like, how do I bring that into more of just normal day to day? Right. It doesn't mean that like having a podcast episode, I'm going to feel that like euphoria of love there, but I know what that sort of like feeling is. And I can kind of come into that in my own space, like in my own inner space more often. And then I believe that invites in like business opportunities. And because it's energy giving, right? Like when we're in a place of like anger and resentment, and don't get me wrong, I go there too. I just don't want to stay there. I don't want to live there. Right. Because there's not a lot of opportunity there other than like attracts like. So if I want more of that, then I should stay there.
You must be a big Tony Robbins fan. I know he talks a lot about states.
You know, I went to one and I thought it was kind of weird, but
Really?
so,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. I would not have expected that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think because it is almost like mass hypnosis that's happening when they go through the state priming. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it, and I can see where it works. It's interesting because it's done at such a large scale, right? It's an interesting experience. Yeah.
Let's shift gears here a little bit. So I know, as the audience or listener knows as well, you're a coach at the Remarkable Practice. But what's the number one mistake you see docs making when they try to scale past that $1 million mark?
Um, let's just say scale in general too, because I think the mistake we all make is somehow that it's always gonna get thinking that things are gonna get easier when, right? Like, right? Like, oh, I gotta do that because it must mean that something's gonna feel better or be better or whatever, insert whatever the like line in your mind is. And I think that's where a mentor said to me, this was in relationship to paying off my student loans. And he said, you're gonna feel the same that you feel right now, so you should just get over it. And I thought, oh, that's so terrible. But I got his point. And his point is the way you feel about money is the way you feel about money. Right. And so we make up a lot of storylines about when I get to $1 million or when I see this many people or when I pay this off or when this, blah, 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 then, right. And it's like, why don't you just not make that be this like pie in the sky and instead like either fix this thing that is preventing you internally from feeling how you want to feel, going back to our conversation about energy, um, or just ask yourself really deeper, like why that thing, right? So that you're really pursuing something that is meaningful for you, right? It's like, why not try? Like, why not try to grow your business? Why not try to employ more chiropractors? Why not, as long as it's actually fulfilling to you, right? So making sure that that piece is right.
Yeah, the hedonic treadmill, right? The
Mhm.
classic if then inserts
Right,
this amazing, blissful, amazing moment that never actually comes.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we wear a lot of expectations and sometimes it's great for us on some level of like, well, a mentor told me I have to get to this volume and then I will be successful, right? And it gets like implanted in your brain. I'll just use that one because that was one for me. Like I knew I had to get to seeing 300 people a week myself and then I would be something, right? And I remember getting to that point and then being like, what do I even think about now? Like, because I've only thought about that because that's what he primed me to think. Um, and that's the part that I think we don't think about, like at each stage of the game, whether that's in launch, build, scale, exit, there's gonna be challenges, there's gonna be new opportunities, there's gonna be things that don't feel good, there's gonna be things that are really exciting, and kind of the way that you feel about them all the way along is what they're gonna feel like. They're just gonna be different, So just like then giving yourself permission of being like, I can rewrite my vision at any time, right? And just because I pursued something and then decided I want something different, that's okay. Just make sure it's authentic to you, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's part that we get wrong is that even though like should we be pursuing $1 million? I don't know, should you? Yeah, like is that what you want? Maybe it's 2 million. Maybe it's 500,000 run lean. Good, whatever, right? Just set it up so that it's actually the version of your business that you feel proud of, that you're excited to go to work for, you know, that it is that which you are actually wanting to put your name on.
Yeah, because I mean, desire is a prescription for suffering, right? Is like the wanting of a thing is suffering in and of itself because you don't have this thing that you want. And that's not innately bad. Like, I don't think there's actually suffering is a bad thing in any way, shape, or form, to be honest, is
Right.
like, it's just it's being intentional about what is worth suffering for, right? Whether
Right.
you put it at the 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, whatever your number
Right.
is like, is that worth the suffering to you? And if it is, awesome. There's nothing wrong with
Mhm.
that, but it is a
Right.
recipe. It's also being aware of try not to desire too many things. Because if you desire all the things, the family and the six pack and the money and the power and the status, and it's like, okay, well, now you're just suffering for no reason because you're not going to get it all. So,
Right. Yeah. And I think we, at all stages of our practice growth and our life changes, have to do a good job of kind of going back and sitting through, like, auditing, like, the order at which we do things and the order of which we place value on certain things. I'll use the example of just that conversation we were having earlier of when my team started to shake up, and yet I still had our vision of what we were going to do. But part of my new vision was that my kids were going to be home with me more. I realized this is where I need to double down on this vision. This isn't where I just go back into, like, oh, okay, I guess not right now because the team's a little unsteady. It's like, no, that's when you go back into the kind of owner operator, like, I'll come in and fix it. And it's like, no, we're going to just attract the right people that will come in. We're going to stay the course. And I'm still going to get to be home Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoons early compared to what I used to be so that I can do these things with the kids, right? Because that's most important to me in this season that I'm in. Our businesses are really important. This is like my life's work on some level, but so are they. And they are in this, like, season that I don't want to miss. Right.
so let's say the doctor listening to this episode does think it's worth the accomplishing of the goal, whatever it is, million,
Hmm.
5 million, 10 million, multiple clinics, who knows, whatever. Of the
Yeah.
coaching that you've done, what are the patterns you've noticed that gets people stuck or that blocks them or that limits them from getting to whatever it is that they desire?
It's a great question. I think a lot of it is self limitations on beliefs, like self sabotage. Um, as an example, being let's just say it could be their ability to show up on time. Like, they're doing little small things that they show up late routinely and don't provide leadership to their team that would take them to the next level. That would be a pattern of, like, someone that's complaining about their employees or complaining about staff, and yet, like, not reflecting on, like, am I the leader that actually attracts staff that would support the vision that I have, like, truthfully. So I think, um, lack of awareness of where we're self-sabotaging the vision that we say we want. I think lack of awareness to where this is what TRP has helped me personally immensely with, which is how do I take right brain and left brain, bring them together, and be better because both of those things are speaking different languages but together. So, like, having awareness of, like, okay, if we're not growing, why are we not growing, and what's the math? Is the mathing, right? And so I think especially in this profession, we have a lot of, like, extroverts, right? A lot of touchy people, a lot of, like, heart light people, which is great. We just also need to, like, have structure and business, and I think that can be where we build it all around ourselves. We don't know our stats. We wonder why it fails when we bring an associate in because we expected them to be a mini us, but we don't let them actually shine because we want them to do it exactly like us. And, like, just limitations because we haven't put the right structures in place as well. Um, and that becomes then self fulfilling and self sabotage too, because we're like, no one does it like me. And it's like, yeah. Anyways, um, so I think that can be a big one. I also think there's a lot of poor management of money, like money concepts in our mind. And money is energetics as well too. It's exchange, right? So, if I can give invaluable service and be very present. I was just having this training with my associates this morning of like, it's one thing to know like our technique and know where to place our hands and how to deliver great, adjustment through the force and the speed. And it's another thing to know how to train our mind to be present with the person on the table so that even though it might have been a 2-minute adjustment, like you have someone fully present with you for 2 minutes, that's a wildly different experience than if I go to somewhere where it takes 10 minutes, but they're thinking about what they're going to make for lunch or dinner or blah, blah, blah. Right. And so there's that mastery level that not only the like main doc to grow their original business has to want for themselves, but also has to want to grow others around them to that degree so that we can scale with, I believe, the care and integrity as well.
Yeah, I hear I heard you say this a second ago, is this how a big part of this is the self-limiting beliefs around it. So I
Mhm.
know that you were able to take your practice from 200 visits a week to 300 in a single quarter. And I'm curious as to like, was that literally something as basic as just like the self-limiting beliefs around it? Or like what was it about it? Was it the systems? Was it the speed? Like all like what happened there?
Yeah, I think, okay, so if I reflect back, because it was a lot of years ago, this conversation that was like the pivotal conversation for me, just kind of like snapping, was I felt busy at 200, right? Like I felt busy, but I realized I wasn't as disciplined as I needed to be in that 200 to 300 jump. And my mentor at the time said to me, "You talk too much and you're too slow."
Tim Young?
Nope.
Oh,
It was Tori Robson.
okay.
And
Because he
and
says
he
that a
was like,
lot.
yeah, you need to shut up. He's like, you're too slow and you talk too much. And I received it, right? I was in front of a lot of people when he said that to me. And I just remember being like, ouch. And then I was like, probably right. Like, and I appreciated him for just being super direct, right? And so I came back and I started asking myself, like, does this really need to be said? Like, so much of what we say in table talk and like is just banter that's not productive. And on some level, keeps people sort of in like we're all like this. We're kind of just conditioned into like robots. Like, oh, it's good today. It's the weather. Blah, 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 and it's like as chiropractors, especially, we're just like we're trying to get people in their body, like live, like you get to make a choice today, right? Like so. To just be going through the motions with people feels like sort of inauthentic too, right? Like we're just like, oh, how are you? And like, oh, it snowed today. So I just really got pretty militant in my own mind about not doing that. Um, and that really helped. Mhm,
Hmm, interesting.
mhm,
Yeah, I when you said that, that's like one of the very first things Tim Young said to me at one point, and I was like, "This is like an echo." But I'm sure there's a lot of
mhm.
doctors that probably talk about this, right? I
It's
mean, you nailed it.
important.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, you nailed it. Is like, I luckily, which one of the reasons I do a podcast show is I personally hate small talk, so I would die if I had to talk about the weather.
You
So
might have a silent practice. Yeah.
yeah. I could do that. That would be my heaven, actually. Does that
Yeah.
exist? Is that a thing? Do
I
people
think there are some people that do. Mhm,
Hell yes. That's what
mhm.
I want. This is
Yeah,
the introvert's paradise. This is
you're right.
phenomenal.
I'm focused.
I love that.
Mhm, mhm,
So let's step into some of the marketing and growth stuff for a second here. So, I mean, there's so many things that we could dive into in terms of like internal referrals to meta ads to Google to dinners with the doctor. And I'm curious though of like all the things you've done in a number of practicing from your own practices and
mhm.
also with coaching other practices is like what do you feel like are the fundamentals of this of like what are the basics that a business or a practice should know to be able to continue to attract and bring on new patients and to continue to market and grow their practice.
Okay, well, where my brain went when you asked that question, you might hate me for this. I wanna, like, flip that conversation on its head for a second because everybody wants to talk about that, right? Like, where am I gonna get more new people from? And I think the thing that we could do so much better, and I know we're working on being better at it, is, like, how do you roll out the red carpet for the people who are the bread and butter already of, like, who you serve, right? And if we did that as excitedly as we like talk about Google and Facebook meta ads and all that, don't get me wrong, I use those too. So like I'm for it. I'm just saying like I think there's so much opportunity already in the people we serve. Even just you think about like if we retain, or I don't even like the word retain, but if we go on the journey longer with the people that we take care of already that entrust us with their lives and hopefully some of their loved ones' lives and more of the people that they have influence of, like that's massive for our businesses, right? If they stay on the journey longer and they don't fall out of care because we haven't created rubs for them and we help them understand and they efficiently seen too so that it's not like a barrier to other things in their life. Like to me, there we have so much business opportunity just in that category. So I think we should just spend as much time thinking about like how well do we do in our practice with when somebody says they've lost a loved one or they have a new job or they bought a new home, like are we doing something extra special for them that creates this like actually remarkable experience of like they really know me here, right? Which don't get me wrong, the educational process is a huge part of that, changing people's paradigm and knowing that they're cared for and they're seen as humans, like they have life happening once they leave our office. That is a huge part, I think, of our marketing budget is making sure that that's happening well and having the right people on your team lead that piece of it. Is that person that's excited to like buy a gift and send it out or write a thank you card or write a whatever. That's been a leg up for us is once we got organized in our team enough to do that and have the post shift huddles where it's like so and so had a family member pass, let's send things to the funeral or let's get a wind chime and send that out or whatever. Like those were things that were really important for both attraction and for retention. And then it's fun, right, too. And that I think is exciting to think about how could we do that even better if we looked at our marketing budget from that to like yes who we're bringing in and yes who are like just doing a really good job of staying engaged and rewarding and excited about the people that already get it, right? We just need to not work them out of the practice.
I don't hate that response. I think it's actually very thoughtful because I think the simple answer would be like just turn up your ad spend. But I think that this is a more fundamental approach to, I guess, solving the problem. And two things come to mind. Is one of them is I think it comes down to understanding your customer, your patient, your audience at the end of the day, which is fundamental. That most people have no idea who their customer is or who their bread and butter patient is. And the other thing I heard too is I'm curious, have you read the book Unreasonable Hospitality?
No, I have not.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
How to read it?
Yeah. So are you so there's this expression from this book. I'll give you a little nugget from it and you'll enjoy this. So the guy that wrote it, he created the #1 restaurant in the world. It's in New York City. It's called 11 Madison Park. It's still there today. It's owned by a different person now, but the guy that started it is the one that wrote this book. It took him, 20 years to build this incredible restaurant and yada, yada, yada. But one of the things I love from this story is he started hiring people that are called dream weavers. And their only job was basically is they would just hang out around the restaurant and they would basically listen and try to pay attention for exactly what you just described is like opportunities to be able to go above and beyond. And one of the examples that he uses in the book is that there was this group of people there that flew into New York, had this amazing New York trip and experience, and they're at this fancy fine dining 11 Madison Park restaurant, and they were talking about, one of the dream weavers overheard them talking about how the one thing they didn't get to do is have like a real New York hot dog, like a real street dog. And they heard this, and so they go out to the street, they go to the hot dog stand, they buy a hot dog, they bring it in, they platter it all fancy and nicey and do the mustard and ketchup, and they brought it out to them. And these people lost their mind. They're like, oh my God, like, how did you know? This is amazing. But that's what they did. Is it's the whole book is around just unreasonable hospitality. Is like, how can you do the personal touch that feels unscalable, that feels impossible to do, but you can create systems around it. I mean, that's really ultimately what they did is they had systems and processes, and they had a number of budget of like how much you could potentially spend on like getting somebody this unique gift or item or experience or whatever the hell it is. But yeah, I think it's an incredible way to do marketing at the end of the day, I guess you could say. But
there's a book, Never Lose a Customer Again.
Yes, my fiance's reading it. Yes.
Okay, Joey Coleman. That was a good read as we were trying to like really think about like gifting on the front end once they engage in the office. And then just that, like when we do our post shift huddle, and this is again TRP, like can you do the like common things uncommonly well, right? Like the huddles are like those critical pieces of like we're getting really tactical about what's going to happen over the next 3 hours, right? And then when we post shift, it's more like, did we button everything up and who needs something extra, or where can we not be tone deaf to something that just happened? And then and now that we have a more robust team than we used to have too, like we have the ability to take more detail in for some of those things too, where it just is, it's better care. It's for sure better care. It's better care not only from the chiropractic sense, but also just like care of that person. So I'm excited that we can do that. And we like to do fun things too. Like we live in apple orchard country here, right? So like in the fall, we always go get like a ton of apples from the local orchard. We always have fresh fruit on the counter that people can take. But in the fall time, we'll get like these little burlap sacks and put them in. One of our doctors like raises like a crap ton of eggs. Like she has so many eggs because she has a huge farm, right? So we got these little like heart boxes of eggs. You put 3 eggs in them from Dr. Kelsey's farm, and everybody got eggs from Kelsey's farm like at one point, right? So yeah, we spend a little bit of money. It takes some effort to put it together, but like people leave and they're like, wait, what? I just got eggs from like one of the doctors, So things like that. We're just like, we like to like people don't like too much change, but they like a little bit of like keeping them on the toes, like what's happening around here? Like something's always happening. I know what to expect, but something's always happening.
Yeah, I love it. And who
Mhm.
doesn't love it? I mean, it's fun. First of
Yeah.
all, it's fun to like come up with these creative ideas for your
Mhm.
patients or your customers. It's fun for them to receive them. They talk about it. They tell their friends.
Mhm.
They post on social. Like it's brilliant. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why there's entire books written about it. But
Right. And
um,
I think we all could do more of that, and we would have, not that we should do less on the front end, but you could do both. And then like you really, again, are hitting different stratospheres probably of what's possible for your practice.
so as we continue, or as I attempt to land this plane of this conversation, I got some rapid fire questions for you. So
Okay.
hopefully these should be easy. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
What's the biggest misconception about building a high revenue practice?
Like that it automatically equates so that your revenue is going to be up. Like you have to be very mindful that as you're producing more and doing more of these things, like that you're watching margins,
Mm,
right? So like you're understanding, where are we spending? What is that equating to in growth? Is this a cycle where I'm investing and then now we're ready for the next layer of growth? So I think just really learning that it's going to look different. Like when you're the one man or one woman owner operator, the model and the margins there will look different probably than what is possible as you expand out. So you're going to have like a different business lens that you're starting to look at what's possible. And I think we struggle at that in chiropractic.
great advice. I think the expression that I heard once is revenue is vanity, profit is sanity,
Mm.
something of that nature. But what's one book every practice owner should read?
Okay, I'm just going to go with what popped in: Power versus Force. If you like anything I said about the energetics, that book is very analytical. Um, so if you could get the concept of what Power versus Force lays out and then apply it to your business as well as your practice, like helping patients, I think it's a game changer.
Hmm,
Mhm.
I've never
I
even
think
heard of it.
growing practices and business is not so different than helping people heal,
Mm,
which means like when we're trying to help people through like natural healing, like we're trying to help them regain energy, right? And like have enough energy to go do the things they want to do through what we're doing with their nervous system and anything else we're doing with them. Same thing when we're growing our business, we're trying to open up energy so that more can come in and more can flow. Power versus force goes through a lot of like elements to our human psyche and where we like contract and don't allow that to happen.
what's the best piece of advice you've ever received from another chiropractor?
Someone said to me, this is so simple. Why not try? Right. And that was like the tagline to everything. Like you only can sit on a beach for so long. You'd maybe be there 2 weeks, 2 months, and then you'd want to go grow some more or do something because that's what we're here to do. And so he's like, why not try? Like, why not try to go to the next level? Why not try to do this? Like, yeah, take a vacation, regroup, get your ducks in order. There's seasons for different things, and then regroup and go.
Yeah, I think sadly one of the things that we've sold Americans for sure is the dream of the, you know, retirement on the vacation on the beach with the margarita. And it's like, that's not actually what people want. Like, that's fun
Right.
for like a minute, but it's not really what you want.
Right. You sort of dream of that when you're a little bit burnt out. We're like, well, maybe. And it's like, just go take a vacation, regroup while you're on vacation, actually be on vacation, right? As much as you can. And then you'll come back fresh and you'll be excited to like pursue it again. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last one. What would you do differently if you started over with $10,000 and no patience?
$10,000 to start and no patience. What would I do differently? Um, I I would pound pavement. I wouldn't do it differently. I would spread a lot of I'd be farming. I'd go everywhere. I'd meet everyone. I would know that I'm in a marathon and not a sprint. I only have $10,000, so I better be out of my office more than I'm in my office. I think that's the part that I especially when you have a small budget. And if I really didn't have to use the mark that money for much else, other than maybe bringing coffee to a few people and opening some conversations up, then I probably would turn on ads right from the jump and bring people in on an offer and then treat them really well in the office. Once they start paying me, then we can start doing the loop inside. Mhm.
Great answer. And also spoken
Mhm.
from somebody that probably obviously has experience with ads, so they know you're not just wasting ad spend. But
Yeah,
um,
no, I would put the $10,000 into the first 2 months of ads, and then it would grow what would happen next, right? So,
that is said like a smart operator. That's somebody that knows what they're doing. Well, cool. What's your plug? We got drlonacook.com. You're doing some research, Instagram. Where can people find you?
yeah, Instagram, Dr. Lona Cook. My link is underneath there, so you can connect with me for a TRP strategy session if you want. You can find our research link that's there. You can see some of the stuff we're doing with the school-based certifications. Send me a message. It'd be great.
Awesome. Thank you for doing this, and
Yeah.
we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Corey. It was great.